Chapter 8. Cracked Mirror. Prudence pushed herself from the wall and continued her raking. She rounded the corner of the house and shook off her thoughts. She was almost finished cleaning the yard. "When you get a good day, you have to take advantage of it," she muttered. "Will you stop that infernal scraping in my ears, Prudence?" Constance parted her curtains to snap. "What's wrong with you? You don't know when somebody's sleeping?" Prudence pursed her lips. She wouldn't take on Constance that morning. She should have taken out the broom as well as the rake. She didn't, and she wouldn't go back for it. She used the prongs of the rake to snag the leaves on the rectangular patch of colored outdoor tiles. She walked to the gate and turned to gaze at the facade of the house. She frowned at the pale pink exterior with its white trim. It was a nice house. Big. Bigger than all of the other houses in River Valley, the fruit of her labor. Not the fruit she'd expected, though. She sighed. What had been done was done. It wasn't like she could pull the house apart and put it back together the way that she wanted it. She remembered the first time that she'd stumbled upstairs. Constance had pushed her aside to lead the way up the staircase, trilling about things that she didn't want to remember. "Hurry, Prudence," she'd urged her. "You're not old yet. If you take so long to climb the stairs, how are you going to manage when you're really old?" Prudence hadn't answered her. What she'd wanted to tell her was not good, so she'd bit her bottom lip. She hadn't minded the steps leading up to the house. Before there were steps, they'd had to climb up a winding dirt track. She hadn't minded the steps leading into the house either. Those were the only steps she'd wanted to tolerate, not a dozen more steps to get to her apartment. She'd climbed enough steps in Canada. She should have been able to choose what she wanted in her new home, not accept what somebody else wanted. All the time she'd talked to Constance on the phone, she'd not once mentioned what she'd been doing to the house, and Prudence had assumed that she'd been following her instructions. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms, a master bedroom, 2 bedrooms with a bathroom between them, just like downstairs, and there was a huge empty area through which they walked to get into each bedroom, an area which could have been made into a living room. There was no living room furniture, just clothes lines on which Constance had hung her washing, probably rescued from the lines outside before a downpour. "If this is my apartment, Constance, where is the kitchen?" she'd asked her. "And why are there clotheslines up here?" Constance had shrugged. "What you going on about?" she'd asked. "There is a big kitchen downstairs and lots of space up here. Where you want me to put the wet clothes?" "Constance, I gave you my money to make my house. I think I should be comfortable in my own house," she'd snapped. "Your house. Your house." Constance had snapped right back. "What about me? You can't say I stole 1 cent of your money. I have the receipts to prove it. I always knew you were selfish. I made a house so that the 2 of us could live together. You have your quarters, I have mine. After all I did for you, I deserve something. You deserve something. So all the things I sent you were not enough. You used my money to make a house that I did not tell you to make, and I am selfish because I did not dance for joy. If I had done what you did, how would you feel?" Prudence had asked her. "Me? I would dance and sing because I would have a nice big house with lots of room. What is wrong with having a big house?" Constance had been belligerent. Nothing was wrong with a big house, Prudence had thought. What was wrong was that Constance had used her hard-earned money to make the house that she wanted. She'd furnished it her way. She'd taken the best apartment downstairs and had relegated her to rooms upstairs and had forced her to walk through her laundry room to get to them. And she'd had the gall to be annoyed because she hadn't turned cartwheels. "What'd she take me for? Some blasted kunumunu?" Prudence let go of her anger. She couldn't blame anybody but herself. She should have put down her foot a long time ago. "I am just too damn nice," she moaned. Realizing that Constance had moved into her house, she'd asked her, "What happened to your house?" The plan was that Constance would give an eye on her house, not move in. "Same place where you left it," Constance had snapped. "Do you know how much work it took the men to level this spot? I thought you would have been grateful to be closer to the road." Prudence had been grateful, but Constance had chosen to ignore the point. "So, who lived there now?" she'd asked her. "Not a soul," Constance had responded with a smirk. "I am not going to rent it. It will stay there to remind us of where we're coming from." Prudence had forced herself to breathe. chosen to park herself in her house, leaving her house to remind them of where they'd come from. She'd inhaled and forced her tone to be even. It can still remind us of where we're coming from, if somebody lived there. Rent it out. At least somebody would be there to look after it and you earn some money, too. No. Constance had snapped. Prudence sighed and tried to focus on the present. She glanced up the hill. Not yet, she muttered. There was one more thing that she had to do in the yard before she could escape up there. She buttoned her shirt up to her neck and went in search of containers. The cherries won't pick themselves, she said as she walked to the cherry tree. It seems like I am the only one who can pick cherries. Everybody wants something, but they're not willing to sacrifice anything for it. Take that, Constance. Nobody love a cherry juice like her. But would she pick any? No. She'd prefer to buy it in the market instead of picking the ones that she has staring at her right in her backyard. I can't understand some people. She don't want the leaves to scratch her. She think that I want them to scratch me. I pick the cherries because they right here and they benefit me. Prudence's chatter mingled with the cheeping of the chicks and the clucking of the hens as she walked around the cherry tree picking the fruits that she could reach. She'd picked a bowlful, but there were many more ripe fruit on the tree. She wouldn't let them go to waste. She climbed atop her step ladder wearing a plastic bag over her left wrist. She was old, she reminded herself, but she wasn't infirm. She knew the risk that she was taking by climbing onto the ladder, but decided that the risk was worth it. Why should she buy cherry juice when she could make her own? She smiled and stretched to pick as many of the fruit as she could. If it was not for that blasted cat, irritating just like Emona, I would get somebody to put something like a hammock under the tree to catch the cherries. But knowing that cat, he will use it as a bed and God knows what else. Prudence picked her bag full of cherries and descended the ladder, feeling for each rung with each foot. Woo, she said when her feet touched the ground. Disaster averted. Probably I shouldn't try that again, she told herself. Prudence smiled, as her gaze lingered on the cherries in her bulging plastic bag and those in the bowl. Enough to make lots of juice, and after I slave to pick them, God bless how much I will get. That woman has no conscience. She took the cherries to the kitchen and left them in the sink. If Constance didn't want to clean them, that was her business. The clock on the wall chimed 7 times after singing, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." It was Constance's clock, so they would have to celebrate Christmas every day until Constance decided that she'd had enough. She started to leave the room, then stopped. Something must be wrong with Constance, she said. Usually she finished breakfast by now. She was tempted to check in on her but decided not to yield. Constance had seemed just fine when she'd yelled at her. She gathered her tools, water, and phone and headed for the hill.